Daily Soccer Podcast with the Global Sports Podcast Network.
Hello and welcome to the Daily Newcastle, where today we're not talking Newcastle, we're chatting England, and it's just a brief one. I've given most of the team a little bit of time off for the international break, so it's just me today. On Thursday night, and we're just going to get straight into it, England broke Serbian hearts after winning 2-0, and that officially condemned Serbia to elimination from World Cup qualification and meant that when it comes to the USA, Serbia is going to be nowhere near. For England, unfortunately, English fans will be sitting up at 3 o'clock in the morning to watch the World Cup, or at least some of us will be, people with sense, and, well, probably those who, might get sacked from their jobs probably won't be. Keep your holidays if you care about the World Cup. But for England, Thursday night was another game without defeat and another game without conceding a goal. Jordan Pickford was forced into 3 saves, which, to be fair, is probably about the same amount he's had to do for the whole of World Cup qualifying. It hasn't exactly been a challenge for Thomas Tuchel's team, but it does have to be said, when you look at some of the other results in the group stages of qualifying in general, in fact, it can be easy to brush England's performances under the carpet. But just look at this week. Republic of Ireland beating Portugal. Cameroon haven't qualified for the World Cup and won't because Cape Verde won their group. Saudi Arabia nearly didn't win their qualifying group against Iraq. Brazil lost to Bolivia. Argentina to Ecuador. Germany to Slovakia. I could go on and on, but I won't. The point is, England have done pretty well so far, and whether you appreciate it or not, it is something that is going to go down in the record books. If England can avoid conceding in Albania on Sunday, just like they did on Thursday. But it does have to be said, Serbia were much tougher opposition second time round because, well, to be honest, it couldn't have got much easier. Serbia were absolutely dreadful since then. They've changed manager, they changed half the squad, but the final score wasn't too different, but the game itself was. England dominated the first game, and although they did dominate the second game, this was at Wembley, and it took 2 fantastic goals from Arsenal's Bukayo Saka and Eberechi Eze to give England a comfortable, unremarkable, but hard-fought victory. And a lot of Newcastle fans will be sitting there thinking, yeah, it's England, though it doesn't really impact us too much. What will impact Newcastle more than anything was the debut of Manchester City's Nico O'Reilly, who played at left-back and looked more than competent, just like he has all season. If he plays there for Manchester City, likelihood is he's probably pretty good. And he is, for those that haven't watched him. He is a very good, solid player, and if he continues like that for the rest of this season, it is going to have major impact on the playing time of Tino Livramento and Lewis Hall, maybe even Dan Burn if Thomas Tuchel decides he needs a 6'6" fullback. No one's going to do that. One surprise that we did see during the game was Phil Foden utilised as a false 9. He came on for Harry Kane in the 66th minute. But let me tell you, we might not have many out-and-out strikers. Callum Wilson, I think, is probably 6th in line to play for England, which is quite worrying. Danny Welbeck's a minute away from an England call-up, but then again, he tore us apart, so why not? But the out-and-out strikers list, it's pretty thin and it doesn't look good. But the central attacking midfielders who can potentially play as a false 9, England are spoiled for choice. There's no rags there, it's all riches. You've got Phil Foden, Cole Palmer, Jude Bellingham, Morgan Rogers, many, many more. There's an array of talent that I don't think any other country can boast, really, in that particular position. Some countries are blessed with wingers, some with defenders, some with goalkeepers. England, we're just kind of blessed in that number 10 area, which it's good. not when you don't know, you don't really have a left back that you trust. It's took us 10 years to have a good centre midfield partnership. Actually, that's a bit harsh. Rice and Phillips did do a great job. But, we haven't exactly been blessed with talent in those particular positions. We've always had a good striker. Looks like that might be due to change. But let's be honest, Harry Kane isn't going anywhere. And there are those central attacking midfielders that'll fill in for him when he's not exactly doing the pressing. And by the looks of Harry Kane, he's decided that he's not really content playing striker. He wants to play central attacking midfielder. There was a moment where he was playing central defender against Serbia. Brilliant little slide tackle. Lee Dixon on commentary saying the only negative was that he didn't get more of the man. Absolutely beautiful challenge. And to be honest, it's an area of his game I wasn't aware of. You talk a lot about Harry Kane defensively. It's usually backing into the goalkeeper while the goalkeeper's going to collect the ball, usually causing a few issues like Kevin Schade did to Nick Pope for Newcastle against Brentford at the weekend. But yeah, Harry Kane, when he does run out of steam, we do have those players there: Foden, Palmer, Bellingham, Rodgers. And it's easy to forget Cole Palmer has an international tournament final goal to his name. And there's no other players that have that really, except from Luke Shaw. But in regards to centre attack midfielder, Foden, back to the game, he didn't exactly impress, but he didn't harm his chances of playing there again. He was tidy, he was composed, and he actually got the assist for Eberechi Eze's goal. Although Eze probably deserves a little bit more credit than Foden for the goal. If you haven't seen it, I'm quite clearly tongue-in-cheek. Eze does everything. Foden does a little nice touch to get it towards him, but I didn't even realise it was Foden that got the assist. It's all Eze. Brilliant from the former Crystal Palace man and current Arsenal player. But I do think we'll see number 10s a lot more in the number 9 role going forward. And see Foden and Palmer doing it at the upcoming tournament. Eze could be a brilliant shout to play there as well. And it sort of reminds me of Spain during the 2010s, whenever Alvaro Morata didn't work out. When Torres wasn't there, he just sort of had his spell where he wasn't really very good, couldn't come in, and then Spain were pretty much sitting there going, well, all we've got up front is Morata. And credit to Morata, he's not a bad player by any stretch of the imagination, but he's not Spain striker quality when you consider Raul, David Villa, Fernando Torres, etc. So I could really see England doing that with Harry Kane when he runs out of steam, Foden, Palmer, etc. False 9, wingers get a little bit further forward, particularly when you've got in the wings, let's say, Marcus Rashford, pretty much a striker, but plays the left side. Jarrod Bowen will come off the bench very likely. For Saka, if Saka picks up a knock, or later in the games. Bowen played striker for West Ham United, but mainly operates on the right. So you have two wingers who are very comfortable in forward roles as channel forwards, and your Cole Palmer or your Phil Foden or Bellingham even just in behind. Could work very well for England. We didn't really see it against Serbia, but then Serbia didn't really cause England any problems. Shouldn't really come as a surprise when ex-Newcastle United striker Alexander Mitrovic has scored over half the goals in qualifying. And he's played just 30 minutes across the two games against England. Mitro is their danger man still, but since moving to Al Rayyan in Qatar, I don't want to say they've felt the need to lower his minutes, but he certainly hasn't been getting the game time he's wanted for Serbia. And it's a real surprise that no Premier League teams came in for him. If you go back to our transfer podcasts in the summer, I was saying after Al Hilal said, Mitrovic isn't wanted here at the minute, which baffling considering he scored 68 goals in 79 games for them. That's better than Ronaldo's record. I really thought Newcastle or maybe even a Brentford or someone like that would have come in for him and took the risk. I am glad we didn't, because we've ended up with Nick Woltemade, who we wouldn't have got. And I think he's a brilliant talent. Astounding was the word I was going to use, and to be honest, it does make sense. It didn't in my mind as I was going to say it, but he is that good. Just not really a striker, but I think him and Johan Wissa together will be fantastic. Mitrovic, he would have replaced one of them in the signings. It wasn't going to be Wissa, two completely different players. But that's all on Alexander Mitrovic, obviously. Got a little bit off on a tangent there. But yeah, Serbia didn't cause England any problems. It was a very, very easy game. Will England struggle a bit more against harder opposition? We're not really going to find out until the World Cup. Maybe we end up with some friendlies against tougher opposition next year before the tournament, but it doesn't look likely, to be honest. But in the meantime, we'll get to England's game against Albania in a moment. For now, going to have a word from Bionic.
Your body is unique, and Global Sports Podcast Network has partnered with Bionic, the world's most personalised supplements. Bionic provide 100% tailor-made supplements, designed to deliver precisely what your body needs at exactly the right levels to optimise your health. No guessing. So click the link in the show notes. Use the code GSPN2025 for 40% off your first month's subscription. Bionic. Don't settle for off-the-shelf solutions made for just anybody. Get what's right for you right now.
Good stuff. So back to England. The game against Albania is their chance to make England's greatest qualifying campaign ever, which is a bit baffling when you see it, actually, but that's exactly what it is. It is qualifying, and that's after this stage. Doesn't matter if they'd won every game to 0 or if they've scraped through on goal difference. At the end of the day, they've qualified for the World Cup, and it doesn't really matter how you do it, but it is good to see that England have put a foot down and are progressing forward. But for Albania, I really hope that Thomas Tuchel makes some changes for the game. When it comes to the World Cup, it is a squad competition. And I've liked the rotation that I've seen in World Cup qualifying. If you have all 25 players who are used to playing for England, some young, some older, used to playing on the big stage at Wembley, wherever, big stadiums, they're going to be used to it for clubs. Let's let them get them used to it, playing for England as well. So I'd love to see Henderson or Trafford starting goal. Obviously, Trafford was called up instead of Nick Pope, who had the concussion. Realistically, it should be Henderson. I think Trafford choosing to go to Manchester City has probably hindered any chances he had of making the next two tournaments. I think he'll probably make the squad for the World Cup. He'll travel, but he won't be in there. If Jordan Pickford gets an injury, it's going to be Dean Henderson. So I'd like to see Dean Henderson start for England, get him a bit of time between the sticks, because, well, if you all remember what happened when we played USA the last time at a World Cup, I know we might not play them this time, but USA and World Cup has particularly bad memories for me. 2010, I believe it was. Less said about that, the better. If you don't know what I'm talking about, look it up and cry afterwards. But you don't want your goalkeepers on that stage not having experience in an England shirt and then getting really nervous beforehand. Quansah and Chalobah, I'd love to see in an England shirt in a game like this. I think backups. We've got Dan Burney's caps. He's going to look quite comfortable now in an England shirt when he does have to back up Stones, Gahey or Quansah. Quansah and Chalobah, two younger players, probably going to be in the England squad for a little while now. Quansah looks really good at Bayer Leverkusen. Chalobah has been one of the stands out in defence for Chelsea. There hasn't really been many defensively, but he is up there and he does look good. Adam Wharton, I always said Adam Wharton would be the answer next to Declan Rice. Turns out it's Elliot Anderson, but I would love to see Adam Wharton in there as well because he is such a good player. And if your options in centre midfield have gone from Jordan Henderson to replace either Jordan Henderson or Calvin Phillips to Adam Wharton or Elliot Anderson, I'm aware on paper, to those that maybe don't watch the Premier League week in, week out, that doesn't sound great. But to those that watch these players week in, week out, that is an array of talent that I'm not going to say most nations don't have, because they do, but it's so much better than England fans are used to. And then as the attacking three, in behind the striker, I do think Harry Kane will start again. He's after the record. He's after a number of records, really. So it'll be one of those where he'll want to start every game, and I think Thomas Tuchel will give him that chance. But in behind, I'd love to see Eberechi Eze, Jarrett Bowen, Phil Foden, all of those in those attacking midfield positions, because again, World Cup is a squad competition. The likes of Jack Grealish in previous tournaments has been able to come off the bench and really change things for England because he's had that sort of experience at times. I genuinely think Foden's had that sort of opportunity, so maybe less so for him. But Eberechi Eze is the kind of player that comes on in a tournament and you can go from drawing 0-0 against, let's say, Algeria or someone like that, and he can come on and he can completely change the game and unlock the defence. So Eberechi Eze, I think, is a must to get more integrated with the team. Jarrett Bowen and Foden I just really like. And I hate the fact that Foden was just pushed out on the left-hand side last time out. I'd love to see him in a number 10 position, or even as that false 9 striker, and just see what he can do. And then, to be fair, one of the things that sort of got me thinking about this was Pickford holding his thigh on Thursday night. Now, it was just a tactic by Tuchel to get a little team talk together, but I was sitting there and thinking, if he's injured, it's not looking good for England, because there's literally, you're going to end up with another Rob Green scenario with the backup goalkeepers. But is there anyone else that you want to see play for England? Maybe a Jed Spence is there off the top of my head. Let us know. My prediction for the game is that we're going to see a lot of changes, and England are going to pick up what will be a fairly routine 3-0 victory, because Albania don't need anything from the game whatsoever. They can attack England, see what happens without any consequence. And their manager is going to want to see how they test themselves against these bigger clubs when they can just play football. It's one of those where if you're I don't want to say a minnow nation, but that's realistically what they are. Like a Georgia, let's say, at the last major competition. They ended up against Spain. They scored the first goal. Sure, they ended up losing. But they looked really, really solid. And you never know with these teams where you don't know how good you are until you can't play that expansive football. And that's exactly what Georgia did, and they looked really good for it. Albania don't quite have the same quality, but their manager surely will want to see how they can do when they just attack teams and try and go toe-to-toe. Goal difference doesn't matter to them now. Doesn't matter at all. Serbia can't catch them. They can't catch England. The only thing they'll want to do is potentially cause an upset, but they'll want to score and end England's run without conceding. All that'll be on their mind is, right, the English press have mentioned the entire time England haven't conceded in qualifying. Be the team that ruins it. Team talk's basically done for them. So I do think they'll try and attack England with that. Pickford will have a few saves to make. It should be a fairly routine victory, though. And England are just going to be too strong. Going to go into the friendlies in March on a high. Still don't know who we play, but it's got to be someone a bit more challenging than Serbia and Albania. That's all from today. I just thought it'd be a quick England pod. Tomorrow I've got a little something prepared for the World Cup. And on Sunday, we'll do a little double review of England versus Albania and Newcastle versus Sunderland in the women's football. Because I'm getting my first taste of women's football on Sunday, and England end their World Cup qualification on the very same day. So it could be a very exciting day of football. And if you want a preview for the Newcastle United and Sunderland derby game at the weekend, maybe you're not as familiar with women's football as our resident expert Joe. I know I'm certainly not. I need to go back and listen to that because I've got no idea, and I want to seem like I know what I'm talking about when I go. So go back and check the last pod that we did. Joe and Joe, actually, coincidentally, she had a guest on. And I'm sure that's a fantastic pod. The first one those two did together was, and I'm sure this one has been as well. So Can't wait to listen to that. Make sure you do before the weekend. I've been Michael Grahamslaw. This is the Daily Newcastle. And me? Well, I'll see you tomorrow.
Your daily soccer podcast with the Global Sports Podcast Network.